Good morning. Another beautiful day in Minnesota, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit today, just to do something a little different. So, today I'm going to talk about things that are happening in life, especially with me. I've been studying the Bible a lot, and I'm learning a lot. I truly am, and I am honored to be able to give this to you guys as well as to myself and the world. I truly believe Jesus Christ came here and gave everything for all of us. And it's so easy to denounce that for a lot of people. I mean, it's just rampant crazy right now. It kind of bothers me a little bit because I just don't understand how it could be so flamboyant about the denial of Jesus. Jesus Christ is King, King of the Jews. Then when I look around in the whole world and all the chaos and all the stuff that's going on, and it's ironic that most of it is caused by one nation over there in the Middle East who thinks they dictate everything that America does as well as just about every other country in the world. And it's just sad that they're smart. They're smart. They use our money to buy our politicians, to create our policies, to dictate anything beneficial for them. I mean, the other day, Theo Vaughn had a rant about something with Joe Rogan. I've only seen shorts. I've never watched the whole thing. And Ben Shapiro came out and said, kind of threatened JD Vance because JD Vance said he likes Theo Vaughn. It's entertaining. Theo Vaughn is entertaining. He's a funny guy. What's wrong with that? And so, but he called out certain a certain group of people, and then Ben Shapiro responded to that and essentially threatened JD Vance that you can't like him. You just can't. And it's so flamboyant that they think they run everything. They're arrogant and smug. And I guess the things that I'm learning in the Bible talk about uniting and not judging and doing all this stuff. And we're stuck in a rat race here. And it's really hard to stay focused on one thing. And I think that's the whole point because everything, if I look around in my life, everything is a distraction to pull me away from Jesus. That's what it is. And you got all these Zionists and all these people in the world who claim anti-Semitic as if it's a Hitler Nazi thing. And you know what? Words have no power here. I don't care. You call me whatever you want to call me. I don't care. I'm going to say what I feel. That's just the way it is. If you don't like the way I feel, then move around. There's a whole world. Go be in it. You don't have to be on my platform, on my show, and my stuff watching me. I'm just a nobody living in my little old nobody life. So it doesn't matter. And I guess what I'm saying is, for me, Jesus Christ has the power. Jesus Christ is my rock. Jesus Christ came and gave me life. Gave me life. I was doomed prior to Jesus Christ. That's the truth. So I'm going to stand up for that. And if people don't like it, oh well, I don't care. You know, and it talks about Jesus is the King of the Jews. Jesus was a Jewish person or whatever in the physical form. Yet the Jews deny him and denounce him. So I'm not sure what that whole history is all about. I didn't really study the Old Testament very much at all. So for me, it doesn't matter about what anybody says about anything until I educate myself. I'm just gonna say, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. And I know that Jesus Christ, when he was rose again, and he said to his disciples, "I must go. and they didn't want him to go, but he said, it's either share myself with you or share myself with the world via Holy Spirit. So Jesus chose to share, and then had Saul, turn into Paul, where he met him on the trail and brought Jesus to the Gentiles, me. And I'm proud. I don't care. If you don't like it, if you think you're better than me, you're not. We're all born equal. We're all flesh and blood of the world, and that's just what we are. We're humans. And so everything in our world is seems to be stacked against us, and it divides us more and more and more and more. And I guess that's kind of what this one is about: uniting together versus divided. And it's real easy to, everybody has their own perch and their own rock that they're willing to die on, or whatever hill, and that's fine. In the same breath, you need to unite together. For example, Minnesota, they the politicians changed the flag. It's very similar to a Somali flag. And of course, as the world knows, Minnesota has the largest Somali population outside of Somalia on the planet. So of course, why wouldn't they want to change our flag to theirs? And there's a lot of cities in the state of Minnesota that are voting to fly the original flag, not the new flag. So yesterday, I guess the state of Minnesota came out and said, well, any city who's doing that, we're not providing any funding to it at all. So my advice to them cities that are flying the original flag: don't pay taxes to state. Don't give any taxes. The people of them cities or towns don't pay taxes to state. What, they don't have enough jails for all of us. Let's go. Let's do this. I mean, let's unite together and take a stand and show this government that they don't control everything, and show all the negative influencers of our government that they don't run everything. And of course, there's a lot of money in politics, and there shouldn't be. It's public service. You're here to serve the people. And people get into politics to get rich and never have to worry again. And then if they're in there long enough, then they get benefits for the rest of their life. I'm not sure what benefits, if it's just health care or if they get their whole pay, which is a burden on the taxpayers. And it's just not fair to the people that they are supposed to represent, that they don't represent. So again, it is for us to unite, and we can't do that without Jesus Christ. We just cannot do it without Jesus Christ. We need to unite as one front under Jesus Christ and follow our Lord and Savior, because that's where the truth is. That's our life. Jesus gave us life, all of us life, not just me, not just you, all of us. And then in the book of um, James, I believe, talks about judging, and how easy it is to use your tongue to praise the Lord in one breath while you're criticizing a fellow Christian in another breath with the same tongue. So the tongue is the devil. And my theory is God gave us one mouth and two ears. Who uses what more? I mean, think about it. And I'm guilty of it myself. I will run my mouth like crazy and not use my ears and listen. That's just the way it is. And so it's important that we all just join together and unify and get in the Word, the living Bible, the living truth of Jesus. We need to do that, and the rest doesn't matter then. There's so many things that say, if you watch any kind of videos or any kind of media of any kind, they have triggers that they do that they're trying to essentially control, and it's all control stuff. Oh, this is going to happen. Oh, this is going to happen. This is the digital currency is going to take over, and there's not going to be any money, and they'll be able to just demonetize you and shut you off and stop your funds and whatever. you know and at the end of the day, They could do that to me. They could do that to you, but they can't do it to all of us. These people who think they run the world do not run the world. We run the world. We make it go round. We together do that. And they have us so divided that it's just crazy how divided that we are. I know this morning I was watching this short video, and this woman's talking about 5 traits of a man, a good man, and they about how they take care of their business, take care of their family, do what they need to do. They don't get engaged in stuff they don't need to be engaged in, and they can also look at a person when they first meet a person and know everything about that person within 5 minutes. And they're called, I forget what she said they were called, like clairvoyance or something. And all the traits that she said, I tend to have them. And then I think, well, am I judging people because I judge them on the first 5 sentences or whatever? And it's not necessarily what they're saying, it's what they're doing. It's their eyes, their movement, their everything about them, their aura. And I've always had the ability to read people's aura and see what's around them, and I can see darkness, and I can see light, and I can see the masks that we all wear, and I tend to be able to see past the masks. It's been like that my whole life. I never understood it when I was young, and I didn't have anybody there to explain it to me, so I just had to figure it out. But with that being said, I've always had that ability. I pick up on things from people and I can read them. So I spent almost a whole career working in a drug treatment center or drug treatment centers and juvenile corrections. I worked with kids, and I can say that that was my advantage because I would look at these kids, I would listen to these kids, and I would know these kids, and I would expose their what they're hiding from and try to give them better walls and better systems to follow rather than what they've survived on thus far. Because survival is essentially what we're all here for. We're all here to survive, and as you can see, I got gray hair, and I'm not at the end of my life, but my, I'm at the downside, if you so to speak. I mean, I have more life behind me than I have in front of me. And that's okay because Jesus gave me life forever. So it doesn't matter how much this body has for life left. It doesn't matter. I know that I am starting that YouTube channel or a YouTube channel about Get Healthy with Dave. I'm a little overweight, as many people are, and I want to get away from the TVs, get away from the stuff that caused me to sit around and get out in the world. I'm a Generation Xer, and I know that I'd get up in the summertime and go out in the morning. I'd have breakfast, I'd go out in the morning, and I would come home at the streetlights. That was just the way it was. I didn't come home otherwise. I mean, if I had to, whatever, if I had to poop, I'd go to a gas station and poop. If I had to, whatever, eat something, I'd figure it out. And that was kind of how it was. I mean, we had the rhubarb. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but rhubarb would grow everywhere, and we would eat the crap out of that. That's just what we would do, and it kind of kept us hydrated while we're riding our bikes around. I know that my brother and I were talking about our bikes the other day, and we were talking about everybody was a bike mechanic. Everybody, and you could fix anything with a vice grip, anything except for a flat tire, of course. But you could take the crank out, do the bearings, replace the bearings, grease them up, whatever you had to do, anything you could do with a vice grip. So every one of us had vice grips on the back on our seat posts, clamped to our seat posts. I'm not sure if you guys remember that, and I know that other generations probably won't remember that, and that's okay. And I've seen the videos about did, did they not have sinks when you were kids? You drank water out of hoses. What's the difference? It comes from the same place. Sink, hose. They're all on your water line. So there is no difference. So it's a lie whatever people are thinking. It doesn't matter. And yeah, we're still here and we survived. We did things that you shouldn't do. I did not wear a helmet on my bike ever. I mean it just was what it was. And as we go, we tend to get wrapped up in everything and it takes us farther away from Jesus. And that's Jesus, I believe, talks about it, or Paul does, or a bunch of people apparently. The distractions take us away from the truth. And that's kind of where we're at today. The distractions are so prevalent that we tend to get farther away from Jesus. And we want to take things into our own hand and battle our own selves with the world or the government or the whoever. And if I try to do it alone, I will go to jail. Just the way it is. And people think that that's a scary thing or whatever. And I'm from the street. I'm a survivor. And if jail is what you have for me, then whatever. I'll do it. I can do time. I know I can. And as long as I'm with Jesus, I don't care. There is no power anybody has over me as long as I'm with God. And today I choose God. I surrender to Jesus. I surrender to everything. I repent every day because I am a sinner and I sin every day. I will, in one breath, say, please forgive me. I'm a sinner, and do the same thing 5 minutes later. I'm a sinner. And Paul said, sin lives within you. It just does. Yeah, I strive to be better and try to strive to be holier than I was 5 minutes ago. I'm not perfect by any means. I am not Jesus. I am not in that realm. And I know that I am a sinner. And I also know that I will not let anybody come to me and try to dictate anything that I'm thinking or influence me in any way. If I can't read about it or discover it in my own channels or my own methods, I'm not going to listen to anybody outside of that. And so, like I said, the Bible is a living word. It's the truth. And Jesus is the truth, the way, and the life. He brought us life. He brings us truth. He brings us everything. He died so we may have that. And that's just the way it is. And so if you don't like it, you don't like it. If you don't accept it, I'm sorry. I will pray for you. I pray for everybody. I really am getting sick and tired of all the separation from Jesus that I see every day with our media outlets and our social media outlets and our everything outlets, and these people come out and say, oh, this person is crazy or that person, and they come out as if they're influential and they have the right to say that about somebody. They are not Jesus Christ. They don't have that right to judge anybody. Jesus is the judge. That's how it is. It says it in the Bible. I believe that. 100% I believe that. And so anybody who comes at me and tries to judge me, or anybody that I admire or follow, that's just the way it is. So just a tidbit about myself. I grew up, and my grandma was a diehard Democrat. I mean, she was on Hubert Humphrey's campaign for when he ran for president. She knew Mondale, the Dayton family, the Bruce Ventos, all these people that I grew up knowing. And so naturally, I grew up being a leftist, a Democrat. And I believed that, and I would fight on that hill and whatever. Then I went to college, and one of the classes that I took was constitutional law. And as I studied the Constitutional a lot, I realized that when I look at history of America, and I see everything that's good that has happened in America, the Democrats tend to oppose. Not always, but for the most part. So that really changed me as a person when I'm studying the constitutional law. And then on this last presidential campaign in 2024, I believed that the Democrats were done. And since then, we've discovered the billions of dollars stolen in Minnesota. And we discovered as of yesterday that it's continuing to happen because they did raids on all these daycares and all these programs for youth that are run by Somalians or Somali companies or whatever that they're not doing what they're supposed to do. So, and yet we, the people of Minnesota, just take it. We're nice. They say Minnesota nice. Yeah, we're nice. It's not my battle. And the problem is Minnesota's run by a bunch of followers. There's not too many leaders in the state of Minnesota. Nobody wants to put themselves out there because they will put you in jail and they will persecute you and they will take your property. They will just mess with you. And I guess I'm at the point right now where I don't care. I don't care anymore. Take what you got to take. Do what you got to do. It doesn't matter. I don't care anymore. Like I said, the I have more physical life behind me than ahead of me in this world. So it doesn't matter. And so if it's me that has to stand up and fight, then I will. I guess I will. And if I'm standing on a hill alone, I will probably not stand on the hill very long. And then our platforms and our everything else will try to smear and say I'm crazy or whatever. And I can tell you I am not crazy. I am not. I have been through the ringer in life, truly, in ways that most people would not ever survive. I've been through it. And that's just the way life is. It is. I earned all this gray hair that you see here. I earned it, you know. And I honestly, if I thought when I was young, if I thought that I would live this long, I might have made some different choices and took better care of myself. Here we are. I'm 57 years old, and I am not willing to just lay down anymore. I'm not willing to do that anymore. As you can see over here on my shoulder is my metal detector, where our trusted governor, Mr. Walz, has made it illegal to use that thing in the state of Minnesota. And anything you find, you have to turn into the state, unless it's $10 or less in value. Yeah, okay. And you have to have a permit to metal detect, which I have. I have two permits right here for two different counties that I can metal detect, and they say I can only metal detect on public beaches in them counties, and there's only two per county that I have, and I have to do it when people aren't gathered, which means that I have to do it early in the morning, and anything I find that's of value, I need to turn into the state. Okay, and it's not that I'm out trying to steal or rob anybody or anything like that, but I know that there's a story about Minnesota is founded on glaciers. We have a lot of lakes. Wisconsin does too. I think Wisconsin has more lakes than we do, and it's glacier stuff. And we all know that through watching the Gold Rush channels and all these channels of gold, that glaciers carried a lot of gold and minerals, precious minerals. So as it's being discovered, the Mississippi River holds a lot of gold, and so it also has diamonds in it and jewels and whatever. But it's illegal to mine that or get that. And so somebody found a 5 ounce gold nugget down southern Minnesota and put it on their social media, and the state took it. They took it away because it belongs to the state of Minnesota. Well, okay, okay, I guess. I mean, America was not founded on this. It was. We're not supposed to be a communist nation, and there's so many rules and so many laws that dictate everything we do in our daily lives. Everything, and I really, really am proud of myself for following the law. I don't break the law. I don't try to break the law. I know my wife tends to have a heavy foot or in when she's driving, and so, and I tend to be a side seat driver and say, "Hey, slow down. We don't need to be going 80 miles an hour in a 60. We just don't. We're not in a hurry. Just relax a little bit." And and she'll say, "Well, you speed too." Well, I do, but within reason. I mean, I'm not going to break the law. I mean, I'm 57 years old and I have zero tickets, zero accidents, zero. I mean, I've had motorcycle accidents, but then we're not. I mean, my last one, I got hit by a intoxicated driver who passed out on the wheel and just cruised over the line and hit me. There was cars in front of me, cars behind me. There was nowhere to go. So he just crossed over and hit me. I was on my Harley and he was in an SUV. Well, I lost that battle. And then my first one, I was young and I was stupid and I thought I had a Superman on my chest. And so I decided that I was going to do a wheelie from a local casino and I was going to ride it to a couple towns over in this wheelie. But I didn't make it. And then my friends had to go look for me, and they found me, and I went off a cliff or something. I don't recall. I know that I got pretty hurt, and so it's, but it's not even about my accidents, not about any of that. It's just about all these rules that we are forced to follow, and like the state, this Minneapolis changing the Minnesota flag for the whole state and then saying if you don't fly this flag, we're not going to fund you any money. If you need roads or water treatments or anything, we're not funding it. Well, like I said, my advice to them cities that say no, we're not flying these Somali flag in the state of Minnesota, don't fly it. Don't pay taxes either. I mean, like I said, what are they going to do? Put everybody in jail? I mean, really, this battle is already won if we just unite and join together. And so let's just do that and just follow Jesus Christ. We need Jesus Christ more back in the homes. I mean, in the 60s, they did the Great Divide on the African American community, take the dads away. And that's kind of crazy today because a lot of the at risk youth that I worked with in my career are they're lacking dads. So I had a job where I ran a group home for corrections, Department of Corrections. And I ran this group home and I'd have 10 kids in there and it would be me and I was the dad. And these kids would thrive so much just from that dad that that's what they need. And I'm old now. I'm done. I'm retired. And I hope that some of the kids that I've worked with would step up and help continue to carry this torch. Unfortunately, the whole world has changed a lot. And so the kids aren't the same as they were. I mean, the kids have been empowered through, I don't even know who decided to empower the kids so much, but they're empowered over everybody else. And coming from being a kid myself, when I was young, I was not developed enough to make decisions like that. I was not in a yeah. I would have liked it. I would have liked how their system is because I could get away with whatever I want and not have to pay any consequence for it. I know that when I was young, my grandfather said, "If you have the guts to do the crime, you better have the guts to do the time." And he meant it because I got caught and I did the time. I did what I was supposed to do, just the way it is. And I was on a vicious cycle when I was young. And I did that all the way through my whole my whole teenage years, pretty much. And I just one day decided, I'm done. I'm done with this. Who knew that drugs might be a problem? Who knew that alcohol might be a problem? Or stealing stuff might be a problem? Who knew that? I didn't know that. I wasn't developed enough. So I did the crime, I did the time. And I made the changes. And it's been a long road coming to Jesus. And I mean, I've always believed in Jesus, always, all my life. I believe that in my first motorcycle accident that I just talked about, when I got injured pretty bad. I got a severe brain injury, and I I came back and I knew God and I knew Jesus. And before had that accident, I believed that we came from the earth and we go back to the earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. That's just how it is. And so that's what I believed. And then when I came back from my first accident, I believed in something totally different. But I also got to cross and go see where we get to go, and I know that this is not the end. I know that this is not the end. We are not ashes to ashes, dust to dust. We are not. And so with that being said, I really want to just have this channel be about spiritual growth together, and I don't want it to be my opinions only. I welcome any kind of feedback from anybody, because I think that that's the most important thing. Is we got to talk. We all got to talk and find a solution together, and we need to do that, and we have to have Jesus involved. We just have to have the Lord. God created us in 6 days and rested on the seventh. 2026 years later, where are we at? From Jesus' time, where are we at? We're still fighting religious wars, and we're still being dictated by people who say, "Oh, they're bad, go get them." They, if they're bad and you want to go get them, you go get them. You don't need us to go get them. I mean, everything in America, and I'm not sure about the whole world, but in America, everything is just unobtainable, unaffordable. I mean, there's nothing. You got these apartment complexes rising up all the time, which will make it impossible for people to ever save enough money to buy a house, because they're not cheap. I mean, they're a mortgage, and I feel sorry for the young people today, and I also feel responsible, because it's partially my generation, and it's actually probably the generation before me, the '60s and '70s generation. Them people, and in late '60s and '70s is still Gen X, but it's the hippie movement that has really crazy stuff in our world. And the '80s kids are not. I mean, yeah, we had long hair. I had hair to my butt. I mean, we were kind of hippies. We followed the hippies, and the music was pretty good. So of course we're gonna like that, but we're just different. The '80s kids are just different because we ran to our own drum. We didn't follow. I mean, we listened to the music and the stuff out there, but we just kind of ran to our own beat, our own drum, and we raised ourselves. I seen a video of somebody talking about Gen X, and they said, and I was 30 by the time I was 12, and that's kind of true. I mean, we had to grow up, we had to figure it out, and life happened all around us, and we would muddle through it, you know. And so, with that being said, I truly hope we can find a way to unite together and just be together. I love you guys. Thank you. Have a great day. Jesus be with you.